brainstorm new ideas. Because I heard all of you are the potential authors, and I'm the potential editor under a tentative topic called AI in language education. So, but we have prepared a proposal already, book proposal, and what else? Template, and criteria, evaluation sheets, and some example chapter for you. So is it clear? Are you ready? Are you ready to go? So again, the writing a book chapter is our first part, and AI in ELT is our next topic.
Nanti kalau kurang bilang ya.
And you can scan the QR code. Why? Because you can get access to these materials. And my material contains a lot of hyperlinks. So you can get access to those hyperlinks free of charge. And when we get to the end of these workshops, you will get access to examples and templates and other important information. So I give you 1 minute, take out your phone, scan the QR code. Are we ready? Yes, yes. Hang on. Doesn't work? Okay, let's get started. So before we start, I'd like to give you some relevant backgrounds so that you can understand the kind of person I am. So my book publication experience started 3 years ago, 2022, about the monograph on informal digital learning of English. And then in 2023, me and 2 other co-authors published another monograph on this topic, English language learning and teaching in digital age. And then 2024, it was an edited volume where we train the teachers and teacher trainers how they can effectively integrate technology into the English language teaching context. And then this year we published another edited volume on innovation in language learning and teaching the case of Korea. And this is another edited volume. And then coming up soon, there's another monograph, the Elements series, informal digital learning of English. So these are my the experience relevant to these workshops. And then I'm going to share some of my experience and lessons with you. Before we talk about book chapter, we need to talk about edited volumes, and we need to distinguish edited volume from book chapter. So edited volume is a collection of scholarly writings on a particular subject, compiled and edited by one or more experts in the field. And each chapter is typically written by different authors. And book chapter is a single self-contained section of an edited volume, usually written by an academic or expert on a particular aspect of the volume's overall themes. So each book chapter contributes to the overarching topic of the edited volume. The author can be one single author, or it can be a group of authors. And is it clear? Okay, so now we're on the same page. Let's move on. So why do we write a book chapter? So So what is good thing about writing a book chapter? Oh, there are several benefits you can gain. First of all, personal growth or professional growth. It provides an opportunity to really delve deeply into a specific topic. For example, okay, how about this one? So this is a edited volume. I participate as an author of the chapter, a handbook of teaching English as international language. So in this book, edited volume, it encompasses comprehensive topics, theory, framework, principle, innovative practice, different contexts, populations, in teacher education, and research instruments and tools, right? So this is a very, very good source to understand a particular topic in ELT, teaching English as international language. How about this one? LBC. LBC is language learning and teaching beyond the classroom. And this edited volume also contains various topics like not only the mapping of this topic and also how teachers and educators can support our students using this concept, and then how we can do the research on this topic. See? Okay, that's one. Second benefit is it can contribute to the field. Not only creating a new knowledge, but you can also provide a new perspective, different perspectives, and you can share some innovative different methodologies how we can do the research on a particular topic. And also, usually nowadays it's a trend. Open access is a trend. Let's say we do the volume project together. It's quite likely that we can make it available free of charge. So like this, open access. So this and when you participate in this edited volume or book chapter project, you can broaden your network. It opens doors for future collaborations and future projects. Usually how it works is, I think this is how we did in the past. So we first organized a symposium about a particular topic in the conference. And then those participants, presenters, became potential authors of the edited volumes. And we also invite additional potential authors to contribute to the edited volumes. Yes. So after symposium, you can you can convert those the symposium ideas into book chapters while in the volumes. And by doing that, you can expand your professional networks. Academically, from career-wise, is also good. You can add it to your CV, and it also shows that you are expert in a particular topic, which can help enhance the reputation and credibility as an expert in the field. Oh, now how you can start a book chapter. For this part, I'm going to skip through because this is not our main interest. Of course, there's an open call for papers, either by invitation through email, social media, open access, open call for the contributions. Or the online communities, they sometimes advertise their book chapter. And the conference, they also announcement about their open call. And then another way you can start is you receive an invitation letter from editors who know your work. So it's important you build a strong academic presence through publications and presentations so that the editors can contact you because they know your work. Another way you can do is you receive invitation letter from editors who know your work and have worked previously on the topic of interest. For example, you wrote an article together, and then the co-author became an editor. So the co-editor knows your work, and he or she knows you are experts about your interest in specific topics. So they can contact you through this. And you can become more proactive. You can actually contact the publisher with a proposal. A proposal you need to discuss in 5 topics. Number 1 topic, you need to clearly define the theme or subject of the volume. And then number 2, you have to explain why this topic is important. Like in our case, AI, right? Why AI is timely, critical in the era of globalization, tech development, and how it's relevant to in the current academic landscapes. So we need to explain specifically the needs of this topic in our field. And marketability. Publisher is also, they are also a commercial commercial worker. So they also evaluate the marketability of this potential book. So you have to provide evidence of the demand and potential sales in the current book market. So if the edited volume is to focus on one reason, they may unlikely to accept that because the market is so small. So we can talk about it later. I'll show you examples how to do it. And eligibility. To highlight your qualifications and expertise in previous work that make you suitable editor and contributors. Because the publishers send your proposal to at least 2 or 3 experts in our field. And then those peer reviewers will evaluate the editors' the qualifications and their relevant experiences. So this is another important factor. And then potential contributors. So they often ask editors to list out potential authors and their credentials in their proposals. So these are another important criteria, elements. So when you click here, you can actually have the information in detail. So 14 pages. I'm not going to go through all detail. You can have access to it. Okay? And proposal reviewers. So here is the questions. So these questions you see on the screen will be sent out to the external reviewers. And external reviewers will ask each question one by one while reading your proposal. what do you consider to be the main strengths of the materials you have been asked to read? Now I'm going to share some the real examples. So this project was done, I think, 10 years ago. Yeah, approximately 10 years ago when I was a doctoral student. And Aya Matsuda was an editor. She was working on an edited volume on this topic, how to prepare teachers to teach English as international language. Back in those days, I was pretty into this topic, EIL, World Englishes, Asian Englishes, and Global Englishes. And because I was a doctoral student, I didn't have any credential, I didn't have any published works. So what I did was I contributed to the very last chapter, which is lessons, activities. Wow, humble beginning, right? So I just share my experience, how teachers can design some innovative EIL activities using technology into the classroom. In this case, I contact her directly through Facebook. And she liked this idea and she kind of accepted my idea and I was able to publish. But it was not like a typical book chapter. It was like this. It was a very simple lesson plan, formal way to share the ideas, goal, the time, duration of the lessons, procedures, and this. And then then this was a my second experience is a book chapter. Teaching English as an international language. It's the same, but now in Japan. In Japan, through a video conference-based flip class. Instead of providing a lesson plan, now me and my co-author, Dr. Nakamura, contribute as an authors. How do we know this? Because there was an open call for paper anyway, so they make announcement about this edited volume, and me and my co-author was doing some project, how we can create ERA environments in Japanese private university through telecollaboration or video conference-based flip learning. Back in those days, we used Skype. Do you know Skype? Yes. Oh, we are same generation. But back then, it was very innovative. You know, using Skype, we invite speakers from Brazil, Hawaii, Illinois, Indonesia, and Korea, and we were first in Japan. Wow, how innovative! We create virtual health environment. So we share this experience through these book chapters. And then this is my third book chapter. It was about informal learning of English. So I think around that time, I was a assistant professor. I can't remember exactly. And then I published several papers on this topic, and then the editor contacted me to contribute to this topic, specifically focusing on Korea, because I'm from Korea. I was working on IDOL, so it's a good combination, right? Remember I talked about this good opportunity to network. Once I published this chapter, I think the editor compiled some chapters to make a colloquium in AAAL, American Association for Applied Linguistics. So there are several researchers on the topic with different interests. So we present our chapter. And then this is my fourth book chapter. I think this was more comprehensive because it's a Brownish handbook of language learning and teaching the other classrooms. And my contribution was research, specifically research instruments, evaluation of instruments for researching learners on this topic, active learning beyond the classroom. And then I look at in 20 years of research on this topic and then evaluate what are the instruments, research instruments that we use, and what are the trends, what are the strengths, what are the lacking, and provide the insights for current and future research. In this case, I published pretty much many papers on this topic, and then editors know my work and then contact me to contribute to this particular topic, research instruments. So I think this is one part of. I think this process was fun because I shared my draft, and then editors. The 3 editors, I think one of the editors gave me feedback to improve, like this research has to be bad, so I approved it and published. So I think if we work on the editor volumes, so it can be like a core journey, right? So editor give you some directions, and contribute, give you feedbacks, and then we continue to improve your chapter and overall editor volumes altogether. I think this was quite recent contribution, my contribution as a editor, author of the book chapter. So BRAWIJAYA book of teaching English as international language. So the Ali, Fuad, and Nicola. So Nicola knows me, and then she knows I'm doing EIL using technology, and then I'm working in education university. So she said, oh, can you write digital education teaching EIL? So this is chapter 16. And then this time, me and my colleagues decided to write an edited volume ourselves. Teaching technology and English language teaching in a changing world. A practical guide for teachers and teacher educators. We started this idea because home teachers come to our institute on a regular basis, and then we introduce a range of different technologies, how they can design innovative lesson plans using those emerging technologies, how we can evaluate the outcome of their lesson plans and etc. So we just basically, and then teachers say, oh, we need some more systematic guidance, how we can integrate those technologies in a way that impact. So this is how we brainstorm, and then we invite potential authors to contribute this chapter. So it looks like the table of content is actually this is the real material that we use. Yes, so we decide the headings like enhancing students' receptive English skills, and then under that heading we identify 4 potential chapters: games, vocabulary, RPG game and vocabulary, portfolio and reading skills, extensive reading and vocabulary, stories for information. So these are all these topics contribute to the receptive English skills using technology. And the second heading is productive English skills. So using game and enhancing students' willingness to communicate, so producing a language. Then facilitating, perfecting, and creating English as international expression through digital multimodal proposal. Video-based shadowing to develop students' speaking, multimodal presentation skills. And then the third chapter is innovative teaching. So it's about teachers, how teachers can teach. And then the conclusion is based on these 13 chapters, summarize and project what lies ahead in the future. So future directions in English language teacher education, changing world. So does it make sense? So if you are the editor, or if you want to edit the volumes, so you start from the overarching idea, then you break it down into 3 or 4 separate subheadings, and then you identify maybe some suitable or relevant colleagues, authors who can contribute to each subheading, subtopics, and then you find I think 1 or 2 maybe some respected scholars who can contribute to the conclusions forward. You can summarize, you can lay the background on this. And then we provide the author guidelines as well. Yes. So we will do it together later. These are the guidelines for the authors. This is like a homework. Okay? All the authors have to submit your homework based on these criteria. Otherwise, you have to do it again. It's actually fun. You have to do it again. We also, the process is very transparent. Why? Because we make it all available to the authors. So, and then we also provide a template. Why do you think template is important? Because, based on my own experience, the researchers are very creative. So we say, oh, please do it. They do it very creative way. And it's the author who have to fix them all at the end. So we give them a structured constraints, and they add a substance to each structure. This makes our editor's job much easier. Based on my own experience. Do you agree? It's very similar to teaching students. And then, yes. I think it takes 50 minutes to read this. So I think we can do it in 1 hour. So, as I mentioned earlier, you need to provide 6 justifications, 6 elements to justify why your edited volume is needed. Define your topic, establish need, assess marketability, confirm eligibility, identify potential contributors, develop a strategy to initiate. I think the first 3 parts are extremely important and extremely difficult. Because it's a creative work. You have to create, you have to justify your work to the publisher. So when you click here, you take you to so I think this was we did it with other teachers, to train how they can publish the book chapter. So based on this guideline, they provide the detailed process. You can take a look. So now we have 1 hour or around maybe 50 minutes. So let's talk about our potential edited volumes. So are you ready? So I was asked, I've been asked to prepare all these materials. And so I prepared it. So tentative title for this edited volume is Informal Digital Learning English in the Global South in the case of Indonesia. I use this topic for 2 reasons. Number 1, if you use AI in education, I think the publishers raise a red flag. Why? Because everybody nowadays uses AI. It should actually dilute the value of the book. So instead, you have to put the title that you are very confident about. And then you can talk about AI in your substance, in your content. That's 1. And number 2, we put the Global South in the case of Indonesia. Why? because it shows that this edited volume can be scalable. Case of Indonesia, case of Vietnam, case of other countries, right? So from the publisher's perspective, wow, it has a big market, right? That's where you can publish. If we focus only on Indonesia, they think, oh, it's too narrow. They may go to a TEFLIN publisher rather than international publisher like multilingual methods, extras. And I already contacted the Brownish series editors there. He's actually working on this topic, so he knows me, I know him, and then when we project this edited volume to him, I think he has a good potential. And then there will be alternative editors, and then explain needs, why this topic is needed. So again, this is very tentative. You can take a look. This is proposed timetable. So for those who are interested in these edited volumes, you can submit your potential chapter abstract October 30th. And then you will receive feedback from the editors, the author, next month. And the first draft due March next year. We will receive another feedback by June. Final draft September, and then the work will be published 2027. These are competitive edge. You have to investigate also you have to benchmark or investigate the unique aspect, unique features of your book. To do that, you have to investigate the books that have been published in the last 5 years or 7 years. And then you have to showcase why your book is unique, different from the existing books. So identify first, and then you have to justify using 1 or 2 sentences why your book is unique or different from that book. It's very hard because you have to read and work. And then author guidelines. Again, this tentative edited volume. Each chapter should be between 3,000 and 3,500 words long. With no more than 3 to 4 charts, figures, and images written according to the APA style, single space, use past tense. There's no room for appendix, very specific, right? No appendix. If your paper is based on research study, you need to discuss and explain the implications of your findings in the application, implication section. Who read this book? Language teachers. Use active voice, first person pronounce, I, to make the language and content more approachable to practitioners. American, British spelling, okay, punctuation acceptable. This is important. All chapters should have the same headings to make it consistent. The headings here in this book chapter consist of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 7. Broadly speaking, 7. So you have a title, right? Title of each chapter, and then you begin with the abstract. Abstract, there are specific specifications, right? Your abstract in Times New Roman 5 12, maximum 150 words. And the issue, you have to describe one language issue or situation in your context. This is a key, actually. This is why you write this book chapter, because you will solve the problem, right? To do that, you have to provide a context, specific problems that you would like to address. We are not asking multiple problems. We are not asking 3 problems. We are asking one problem. Why? One problem is enough to share with 3,000 words. For example, a lack of speaking. For example, yesterday in my presentations, I talk a lot about speaking, right? So let's say speaking is your problem, but you need to go deeper. Speaking is too broad. It can be a fluency problem, it can be an accuracy problem, or it can be a polynomial, like B sound or P sound. So you identify a specific problem of speaking. That's the first step. Your scenario can be real. If you're working in a K-12 or university setting, this is good news because you can share your genuine, authentic experience using your participants. Or you can create a scenario. It's okay. If you do not use any actual data, let's say you are reporting on an actual project, so you have to use the past tense because that can happen in the past. Okay, this is very important. And then you need to discuss about your solutions, creative solutions. So let's say your student struggle to speak B and P sound. They are primary 6, maybe age about 12, no international experience. In your class you have 25 students, 20 female, rest are male. Infrastructure, okay. You have internet and a projector, but students do not have iPad, but they can bring their own platform. So you describe your context, and then you describe the problem of your students, the DMP sound. And then you need to describe your innovative pedagogical approach. And now the students have the mobile devices with the, let's say, Google Assistant downloaded on the phone. And then you provide a specific step-by-step procedures how students can practice EMP sound using the device. Theory is basically you explain justify or explain your pedagogical approach, which is supported by 1 or 2 relevant theories and research. Do you know the difference between theory and theoretical framework? What do you know the difference between concept, theory, theoretical framework, and pedagogical framework? No. Because my doctors are often confused. What's the difference between these? The concept is a what? Like either, for example, informatical English is a phenomenon, right? So it describes what it is. It describes how students learn and use English across different platforms outside of the classroom. So you just describe what it is. So this is a concept. And then theory is a little different because theory explains why and how. For example, motivation, specifically self-determination theory, autonomy, relatedness, and competence. So we explain why students are motivated and how they are motivated using this theory. So it's not just what, it's a why and how. There's a difference between concept and theory. The theoretical framework is a combination of concept and theory. For example, I want to, let's say the problem of my students is motivation. So this is the problem, right? Dependent value. And I want to improve my students' motivation through idea, through the concept. So my theoretical framework or conceptual framework can be how idol can contribute to improving students' motivation. So now we have pathway, right? This is the theoretical framework or conceptual framework. So this is the exciting part because based on your problems in your classroom, by identifying the problem, you can use the theory to solve this problem by building your own theoretical framework. And the pedagogical framework is, because the theoretical framework is a theory, right? Something that you think in your brain. But how about the teachers? How teachers can use the theoretical framework into actual classroom is you need to show how the theoretical framework can be manifested in the classroom. So you need to show one by one. Pedagogical framework. So theoretical framework, which is your model, and pedagogical framework are actually coherent. In that regard, theory, so to solve your problem, you have to choose one theory to address your problem. That's why issue and theory are actually closely connected. Now that you have a theory to explain how to solve this problem, and then you have materials, this is where you can use emerging technologies. So for these contributors, you need to choose at least one, right? Multiple emerging technologies, such as generative AI, or metaverse, or Kahoot, whatever it may be. You choose those materials with digital resources, and the next step is very important. You need to justify why you have selected technologies. For example, yesterday I showcased how Copilot can be used as a conversational partner. Why not ChatGPT? Why not Gemini? So you need to explain. It's a free, voice-based, and also you can get the data from the students. Copilot is free, it's voice-based, but you cannot get the data from something like this. You have to justify why you have selected the particular technologies to address the particular problems. This part, only teacher you can do it because you are the contact expert. In some contexts, AI may not work. Like, for example, in some very remote area. Because one time last year I visited India. They say, oh, it's the best school in the town. But when I visited that school, there was only one blackboard. So I was talking about AI. Wow, see? It's not valid, right? It's not locally appropriate. So that's why whatever technology it may be, you choose the technology that work in that particular context. And then I think now you are ready. If you are a cook, now you are ready to cook. Because now you have material, theory, and you have the resources, right? And then now the fun part is to design your activities. The core idea of IDOL is to enlarge the learning spaces. Classroom space is okay, it's good community, but it's only quite limited in terms of time and the manpower, right? Let's say you have 20 students, 40 minutes, you provide lessons twice a week. It's 80 minutes, right? And you have 20 minutes. Imagine you're teaching how to improve their speaking. Wow, you don't have time. So imagine how you can enlarge the physical learning space beyond to include digital world where students play, have a lot of fun, spend a lot of time. So this is your mindset. And for this lesson plans, using technologies that exist in the world, you can imagine, you can envision how your student can consume and produce the target language in a way that they have fun, they feel autonomous, they learn and become a language user. So that is where extracurricular activity and extramural activity look like. And then reflection. In my opinion, the reflection is increasingly vital in education. Why? Because nowadays people do not seem to think deeply. So if the teacher can think deeply, critically, and ecologically, I think they are in high demand. So that's why we always put reflection at the end of each chapter or each activity. So teacher need to think. So how the pedagogical approach benefits students, and integrate thoughtful evidence-based reflections on what worked, what didn't, and why, with a reference to relevant literature where possible. So reflection is like, in the academic journal, it's like a reflection, the discussion. So you discover new findings, you interpret what it means, and you use existing literature to contrast and compare and contrast. And then you use a theory to explain why it worked, why it didn't work. And then you end that your paragraph with a summary. In the same way, reflection is like this. You observe the problems, and then to solve the problem, you design some pedagogical, innovative is new pedagogical approach using maybe 2 or 3 different university technologies. And then you use one theory to back up this theory of the pedagogical framework, and then you implement it. And it worked. Congratulations. It didn't work. Wow, congratulations, because you discovered, your mistake, your failure actually, you discovered it, right? Wow. I'm personally very excited about the failure story. So you fail, and then you go deeper. Why you fail? Using existing literature, theory, or evidence you gain from the experience. Survey, observation, internet. And then the last part is important. We need to offer the suggestions for future pedagogical directions. And then if you receive some funding from your university or government, you can include the funding information here. The references include at least 5, but not more than 10. And then your Bible, content information. Use 50 words. You think it's clear? You think it's doable? Are you confident? Are you still? Okay, I can see many smiling faces. And then wow, how kind am I? So this is a template, meaning that you can just copy and paste your document, and then you can start your own project immediately, starting from today, starting from now. So you find the topic here, you find your information here, an abstract, issue, theory, materials, and sequence of activities, extracurricular, extramural, and reflections. That's it. So I think many the researchers, especially the young researchers, are hesitant or afraid. Not afraid. They have some fear of writing. So I would say, let's say you have 3,000, right, and break it down into 6. So there are 6 headings. Means if you write 500 words every day, you can finish this project within 1 week, right? 500 words, 1 hour, and then coffee and have fun and sleep. Next morning, you wake up, write 500 words, and then eat, drink, have fun, sleep. Next morning, wake up, sleep 500 words. Without 500 words, no breakfast, okay? No 500 words, no breakfast. So if you repeat this every day until Friday, I think you have your book chapter. Wow, how easy it is. So this is how you can do it. Don't start. I'm gonna write 300 words today. Wow, you get run out. So then this is the criteria. So when we give homework to our students, there are always 2 or 3 students who disagree with my grading. So my strategy is I make the criteria available to them. So you make it transparent, right? So when they argue, why I got B+, because according to this, you have 2, this part is 1. And then it's a happy situation. But if there's no clear guideline, I think it's an argument, right? We are not happy. So there are 7 specific criteria, including clarity, consciousness, conciseness, and impact. Like it's the abstract or compelling and accurate summary. Is the chapter well written or accessible? So this is about abstract. So if you say yes, congratulations, so you get 3 points. See, there's 3 points. Exceed expectations. Clear, address comprehensively, insightfully, exceptional clarity. Number 2 is to identify the language issue clearly described, relevant and significant for the target audience. Number 3 is pedagogical approach well explained and robustly supported by relevant theory or research. Number 4 are the materials, the sequence of activities, extracurricular tasks described with sufficient detail for another teacher to replicate. Wow, this is very important. Like any other research paper, replicability is important. So imagine you send me your chapter, and I'll read your chapter, specifically this part, the pedagogy, how you implement your ideas in the classroom. When I can envision your classroom with a specific student and the technology used and also action, congratulations, that's very good, because I can replicate what you did to Hong Kong. So that's what I mean by replicability. It's like a cooking recipe, cooking recipe is specific. Some people use very vague verb, understand, describe. Just just use action verbs so that the potential reviewers can visualize the situation scenarios. Replicability is important because it can lead to the generalizability. So if it works in Indonesia, if it works in Korea, if it works in Hong Kong, I think it's more generalizable. That's why we have to provide detailed procedures, how you conduct research and implement your ideas. It's the use of digital technologies, including generative AI, clearly explain and justify pedagogical design. And then when you write about your reflection, you need to use evidence, data, to do your reflections. Then this is for the editors. Let's say we receive a chapter from you, and then your name will be here, right? Your name will be top, and then they will evaluate each chapter based on this criteria. Oh, number 1, 3, 2, 1, and they give you a score. So total 21. So I think this is good because it's again more or less transparent, and also you can holistically, comprehensively evaluate the value or rigor of the chapter. And then when we give a feedback to the authors, we can use this, not only the quantitative evaluation, but also qualitative evaluation. So maybe underneath we add some written comments, how the authors can improve this work. And then this is a sample chapter. Actually, we use exact same heading, but you don't have to worry about it because your substance, your content will be completely different. Context is different, experience is different, technology that you use is different, pedagogical approach will be completely different, right? So this project was written, led by my doctoral student, back in those days, doctoral student, and he was working on. He wanted to improve Kazakhstanese EFL students' presentation skills, multimodal presentation skills. So she described the abstract, the situation here, and then he developed this interdisciplinary multimodal presentation project as a solution. And then just describe how teachers can do using particular technologies. Issue, theory, a lot of computers, and the materials they use, Wi-Fi, iPad, software, and then a sequence of activities, how teachers can implement extracurricular activity in the classroom, and how students do outside the classroom, and eventually how students can learn, use the language outside of the classroom autonomously. And then using the evidence, using the data we collect, like interview and survey, and then reflect on what went wrong and what worked, what went wrong, and how this can be improved in future projects. References, the authors. Okay, is it? So you can have an end picture, right? Is it clear? You have more confidence. You're not afraid. You're not afraid of the publication experience. Yeah, I think I shared my experience.
Thank you very much for the insightful and inspiring presentation of me. Okay, anyway, this is a very good presentation because I believe that every one of you has experiences, and then you would like to, maybe you want to have your voice heard. Yeah, so let's start writing and join us for publication. So I think later I will share with you the QR codes, in which we will submit your article manuscript, and then we will, we'll do the editing and blah 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 by the end of the year. Hopefully, all the manuscript will be collected, and then it's ready for editing processes, blah blah blah, and so on, and so on. Okay, now I would like to invite we move to Q&A session. I think I would like to invite some of you to, if you have any questions, so raise your hand and state your, yes, people over there, people, yes. Microphone please. Yes, okay. over there, Ibu Ini, yes, please, you can. Ibu Ini, raise your hand, please. Ibu Ini, yeah. Microphone. Baik. So we will be happy to have your manuscript acted by the end of the month anyway. So it's very simple, but then we need to see whether or not your manuscript will be eligible, yeah, for the publication. So we would like to have kind of like screening first, and then if it is ready to publish, so I think you can start writing your, full manuscript.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Norris from Universitas This is interesting to know how to write a book chapter, but okay. Is it clear now? Thank you. Yeah, it is interesting to know how to write a book chapter, but I have never experience of writing a book chapter. That was a lot of information that you have given to us, and I'm really eager to learn how to write a book chapter. My question is that is it possible to write a book chapter with different educational background, based on the pedagogy of teaching, not only English. So, for example, I have a partner in mathematics or biology. Is it possible to write a book chapter on the pedagogical base? That's the first. And the second, excuse me, is it possible for us to access the information that you have given to us? Submitting the proposal of the chapter, I would like to know that. Thank you very much.
Last question, you have a QR code.
QR code.
If you scan the QR code, it will take you to the material. And there are hyperlinks, link hyperlinks. Click,
Alright.
take you to the materials.
Okay, thank you.
If you cannot get access to the materials, send me an email.
Thank you very much.
I cannot make them available because it's a copyright issue.
Alright, okay, thank you.
First question, you are talking about interdisciplinary.
Yes.
So here, the important thing is the topic. You have to choose a topic. So what topic are you interested in?
Innovative teaching. Innovative teaching.
Academic teaching.
Innovative.
Innovative teaching.
Yes, innovative teaching.
Which level?
Also, it's really specific, like high school, for example.
So it can be innovative pedagogy at K-12 data, interdisciplinary approach. So that can be a topic. And then the issue can be problem across different disciplines, mathematics, English, history, humanities, science. Although they have different discipline, I think they have an issue, right? So each author can describe the issue. That's the first thing. And the second thing is how they can approach and design innovative pedagogy to address the issue. And then we can invite relevant authors. So how the teacher address some problem through innovative approach. How English teacher solve the language issue problem in the classroom through innovative approach. How history teacher introduce emerging technologies to turn the classroom into something more engaging. So again, you select a overarching topic, and then each contributor, regardless of their discipline, domain knowledge, can contribute. This is how so that's why editor's job is important. You have to create a structure or environment.
Right, so like we have the big umbrella of the pedagogical problem of each discipline. Okay.
So
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Now, we'd like to invite another. Okay, right. Yes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Sutyani. I'm from BRAWIJAYA University. First of all, thank you for sharing the insider knowledge about the process that you've been through as a writer as well as editor of the book. From your explanations, it seems to me that with the rigid timeline, you really have to have something already, whether it's from your research or from draft of writing that you already have. So by the time you see the call for proposal, you already have something to begin with, especially when it is a month, timeline. What's your suggestion for especially novice writers or for younger students who want to write a book chapter, but they probably don't have even the first draft yet, but when they see the call for proposal, they see that, oh, this is something interesting that I might have, but I don't even have anything yet. Would that be possible, or is it something that you need to cultivate from the beginning, that you have already, then you go through the process? Because today is kind of like a new thing that we have, that there's going to be a call for a proposal, but possibly we have something really like small, but we have not started the writing process yet. What's your suggestion for that, and maybe in the long run, what we should do as an academic to actually prepare for this kind of writing? Thank you very much for the insight.
Two responses. First response is that when editors call for paper contributions, they often invite the abstract, 300 words, 150 words, to screen out. So during this stage, you're given normally 3 months to 6 months to prepare. It means you don't really need a empirical data yet. You don't, yes. It means that you actually have adequate time to prepare. That's what I want to say. And for second response, if you are a novice author, you're a university scholars, I strongly encourage you to work with someone more experienced. For two reasons. One is you can avoid making mistakes. Emerging scholars, based on my limited experience, often ambitious, meaning that they want to put everything into one chapter, which makes your book chapter very complex, complicated. It makes it unpublishable. However, if you work with someone who experienced authors, the authors can guide you along the process. And also, from the editor's perspective, you give the chapter more credibility.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Prof. Okay, now we still have the time. We still have 5 minutes. I think I'd like to find one more question. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Nurul. I come from UIN Jakarta. Next year we are going to host the 72nd International Conference, and I'm thinking of offering a book chapter as one of the products for the publications. So, of course, yeah, I'm thinking that we have to start like very soon. And of course, we also want to have a good publisher. We have Routledge, Springer. How can we convince the publisher to accept our proposal so that then we can also include the information in our flyer? Thank you.
As I mentioned in the PowerPoint slide, there are two approaches. One approach is outsider approach because they know your work, they know your great work. Another one is you can directly contact the publisher with your enter app portal and your credentials. Another way is you can work with the editor who know the publisher. For example, Barry and I know each other, and he's working on a certain topic in biology and working on several projects, one of which can become a editable. So I say, oh, we have this project, and we have already list of potential authors, and the topic is timely, we have a market. The editors, me and other editors have track records, authors, great teaching experience, and these are our sample chapter, and these are the potential audience. And send it to him, and he said, oh, okay, I can send it to other external reviewers, and then if they like it, contract. Yeah. In my opinion, that's actually a very safe way. But if you submit your abstract to a publisher, they evaluate your proposal with very critical eyes because of the but if you know your series editor personally, I think they have some more, some human centric. So if you really want to publish editor volumes, then my suggestion is try to work with someone who are already editor or series editor directly with you instead of contacting the publishers. I think 1 year to next TEFLIN, so 500 words before breakfast. Ask your spouse, ask your writing partner to check over your writing process. You need a writing partner, otherwise it's so easy.
Okay, thank you so much. So anyway, we have probably, yes, I think he can help us to publish because he has the connection. I think that's what necessary to say. Okay, right. I think we have come to the end of our session today. Thank you so much, Lovely, for presenting today. And now we know. And Mas, tolong ditampilkan berikutnya untuk yang okay, right. Bapak Ibu, here we have the QR code. If you want to join us, I'd like to invite you to share your manuscript with us. Yeah, so I think we will do the screening, and then I believe that Prof. Lee has discussed with us about what to, how to design the chapters, and then I think so. If you submit your manuscript as soon as possible, it doesn't matter. It's only an abstract first, because it's only like, what is that, we will do screening first, and then we proceed with other processes, but then it will take years, it will take years, maybe a year at least, to do screening and, contact the publisher, and hopefully that we can publish in the batch soon, and hopefully that everyone can join us in this book chapters, in format. Okay, right. So, I think this is the end of our session today. Thank you so much. I will give it back to the MC. Okay, thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor Chu Song Lee, for the insightful and hands-on workshop.
Next, we would like to invite all audiences to come closer and fill out the front seats. For all audiences, we would like to invite to come closer and fill out the front seats first.
For the audiences, we need to help to go to the front to fill the seats. Thank you.
Republic of Indonesia, Profesor Abdul Mukti, and the Rector of Universitas Brawijaya, Profesor Widodo, for attending the conference.
Welcome to the 71st TEFLIN International Conference, to the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education of the Republic of Indonesia and Rector of Universitas Brawijaya. Before we start, let's witness the profile video of Faculty of Cultural Studies, Universitas Brawijaya.
The Faculty of Cultural Studies is a faculty in Universitas Brawijaya, focusing on language and cultural studies that offers undergraduate and master's programs. The Faculty of Cultural Studies is made up of 3 departments. The Department of Languages and Literature, which comprises 4 undergraduate programs: English Literature, Japanese Literature, French Language and Literature, and Chinese Literature, 1 master's program in linguistics, and undergraduate international programs in English Literature, Japanese Literature, and Chinese Literature. The Department of Language Education, which comprises 3 undergraduate programs: English Language Education, Indonesian Language and Literature Education, and Japanese Language Education. The Department of Art and Cultural Anthropology, which comprises 2 undergraduate programs, Fine Arts and Anthropology. The Faculty of Cultural Studies is consistently developing its global reputation in all aspects to support Universitas Brawijaya and continuing to become a world-class university. In the field of education, the Faculty of Cultural Studies is consistently improving the quality of its curriculum. All of the departments are accredited by the National Accreditation Board for Higher Education. Additionally, the Faculty of Cultural Studies is internationally certified and accredited by the ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance for the study program of Japanese literature. Currently, all study programs are achieving international accreditation from the Agency for Quality Assurance through accreditation of study programs. The global reputation of the Faculty of Cultural Studies is acknowledged by international students from various countries enrolled in double degree and student exchange programs. The Faculty of Cultural Studies implements outcome-based education involving proficient teaching staff from various countries and the freedom to learn independent campus curriculum, which is enthusiastically supported by students in various fields of study. As part of the process of internationalization, the Faculty of Cultural Studies organizes student exchange programs, teaching collaboration with lecturers, international lecturers and practitioners, international seminars, and has international agreements with reputable international institutions.
Bonjour, je suis Benoît Davouzé, directeur de l'Institut français de Surabaya. La fac des lettres de l'Université de Brawijaya est la seule faculté de lettres de Java Est qui possède un département français. De ce fait, nous avons de nombreuses coopérations avec cette faculté, cette université, qui recevra bientôt le centre de passation de l'examen de certification de langue française TEFLIN.
The Faculty of Cultural Studies is committed to supporting the 3 pillars of higher education: teaching, research, and community engagement. through national and international collaboration. This collaboration includes a commitment by local and international partners to provide scholarship opportunities for all students.
Halo, perkenalkan saya Brady. Saya mahasiswa aslinya Amerika, kuliahnya di FIB di Universitas Brawijaya. Jadi saya itu mulai belajar di sini mengikuti program siswa belajar bahasa Indonesia. Kemudian saya mencoba mendaftar beasiswa S2. Syukurlah saya diterima dan saya dapat mengikuti program linguistik di sini.
Humanity-oriented education has been the philosophy of the Faculty of Cultural Studies, which inspires the development of research in the studies of language, literature, arts, culture, and pedagogy, which are globally oriented yet locally rooted. The Faculty of Cultural Studies supports students to be creative to maximize their potential through innovative and collaborative information and communication technology-based learning. The Faculty of Cultural Studies has internationally standardized infrastructures and disability support services. The Faculty of Cultural Studies, Universitas Brawijaya, creative, intellectual, humanist, and culture.
Proceeding to the next agenda, which is the keynote presentation that will be presented by our keynote presenter, Professor Abdul Muti, the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education of the Republic of Indonesia, and have completed his doctoral degree in Universitas Islam Negeri Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. Professor Abdul Muti is a former advisor for British Council London and a member of Indonesia United Kingdom Islamic Advisory Group.
He continuously published his books with the latest entitled Beragam dan Pendidikan yang Mencerahkan, Perspektif Multidisiplin dalam Orientasi High School, and has received multiple awards from Australian Alumni Award, Inspiration Award to International Visitor Leadership Program, USA. Now, we would like to invite Professor Abdul Muti to deliver the keynote presentation.
Thank you very much. Sorry for breaking the rules because I'm supposed to sit there, and if I sit there, then you cannot see me very clearly. So to make sure that you see me, then allow me to stand here. Mohon maaf ya Pak Dekan ya. And I come here a bit late for some reasons, but although I come late, as very popular adagium, better late than never. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Wish you all the best. Yang terhormat Bapak Rektor Universitas Brawijaya, Profesor Widodo, SSI, MSI, PhD, Medical Science, Bapak-bapak, Bapak dan Ibu, para wakil rektor, para dekan dan wakil dekan, and speakers, Professor Gary Barquizen from Auckland, Professor Chu Xiong Lee from Hong Kong, Associate Professor Hamama from University of Brawijaya, Professor Yang Yu Jeong from South Korea, Professor Kiria Rebecca Finaldi from Brazil, Associate Professor Dennis Alonso, Professor Utami Widyati, President of TEFLIN, President of Indonesian Association of Applied Linguistics, Dr. Mainarni Susilawati, para dosen, mahasiswa, sivitas akademika Universitas Brawijaya dan peserta dari seluruh Indonesia. I'm here also accompanied by my colleague, Profesor Nunuk Suryani. She is the Director General, Dirjen Guru, Tenaga Kependidikan dan Pendidikan Guru. Kemudian juga Kepala BPGTK Jawa Timur, Bapak Abu Khoir. I believe that he is here somewhere. Oh, are you there? Okay. Kemudian Bapak Kepala BPPP MPV BOE, Bapak Igusti Made Argana. He is actually one of the most diligent staff in the ministry, because anytime he's doing something, he made himself. Namanya Made, jadi buat terus. Kemudian Kepala Balai Bahasa Jawa Timur, Ibu Retno Hardining Tias. First of all, allow me to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to the organizing committee who invite me to participate in this very important conference, and I think one of the oldest conference in the world, I think, the 71st TEFLIN International Conference. Second, of course, apologize for coming late. Actually, I supposed to deliver my speech yesterday as a keynote speaker, but for some reason with the activities in the ministry, then I could not make my time for yesterday meeting. And when I have to speak as a keynote speaker, it is very uncommon that keynote speaker speaking at the end of the conference. So it must be lost key. Mungkin itu kunci yang hilang, bukan kunci yang kunci. But of course, with the limitation of my English proficiency, since I'm not graduated from English department, then I'm confident to speak in both either Indonesian or English. So sometimes we call that gado-gado. And if you don't understand Indonesian, you can ask AI and ChatGPT to have translation for you. The theme for my presentation is transformasi pembelajaran bahasa Inggris dan penguatan deep learning di sekolah Indonesia untuk menyongsong peta jalan pendidikan nasional 2025. I hope you have the translation in English with you already. The direction of English language policy in the National Education Roadmap. National Education Roadmap 2025-2045 explain three transformation pillars: equal distribution of access, quality and educational services, enhancement of teachers and education personnel competencies, transformation of learning toward deep future-oriented education that is productive and competitive. Within this framework, English language learning is positioned not merely as a communication skills, but also as a 21st century global competence that support cross-cultural collaboration, creativity, and digital literacy. Based on this policy, the government, through regulation of the Directorate General of Primary and Secondary Education, number 30/2025, stipulates that English will become a compulsory subject in primary school starting from 2027-2028 academic year. This policy serves as a concrete implementation of the National Education Roadmap, emphasizing that foreign language proficiency, particularly English, is a key instrument in developing graduate profiles that are productive and globally competitive. The primary school teacher competency improvement program in teaching English. We have some programs dealing with this policy. First, as a follow-up to this national policy, the Ministry, through the Directorate General of Teachers and Education Personnel, this is the Director General of Ibu, has designed a primary school teacher competency improvement program in teaching English. This program is a strategic part of the National Teacher Capacity Building Initiative as outlined in the National Education Roadmap, which aims to ensure that every teacher possesses 21st century competencies and technology-based pedagogical skills. The implementation of English language learning is designed to align with the learning outcome atau capaian pembelajaran stated in the curriculum, emphasizing mastery of receptive skills, listening and reading, productive skill, speaking and writing, and contextual communicative interaction. To ensure the equivalence of competency standard at the global level, the program's development is based on the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, or CEFR, an international benchmark for defining language proficiency level and developing learning outcome profile for both students and teachers. The purpose of PKGSD-MBI is to improve the English language proficiency of primary school teachers to reach CEFR level A2 with national facilitators at a minimum of B1 plus level. Second, to develop English teaching pedagogy based on the principles of mindful, joyful, and meaningful learning. And the third is to implement the deep learning approach as part of the primary education curriculum. And the fourth is to integrate teacher training into the Ruang GTK based learning management system, or LMS, to support continuous digital learning. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, in relation to the teacher training, we administer deep learning as national learning paradigm, or I can say as the new direction of teaching and learning in Indonesian education. The National Education Roadmap directs all levels of education toward deep learning, which fosters learners with think critically, reflectively, and creatively. Through deep learning, students are encouraged to appreciate diversity, develop cross-cultural empathy, and think globally without losing their local roots. Mindful and meaningful language learning serve as a medium to cultivate learners' character, critical thinking, independence, faith, collaboration, and global mindedness. In the context of English language learning, deep learning means first, developing mindful, joyful, and meaningful learning. The three principles that form the foundation of the curriculum. Using language not only as a tool for communication, but also as a means for thinking, collaborating, and problem solving. Connecting text and context within social, cultural, and humanitarian issues, encouraging students to understand meaning and values rather than merely memorizing forms. And finally, fostering authentic, creative, and collaborative communication skills. Pak Rektor, speakers, and participants, in line with our policy on deep learning as new direction of our national education, we also emphasize on the importance of literacy and also building the character. Literacy does not simply mean the ability to read letters, but it's actually competencies that involve ability to understand the text, ability that relate the ability to express ideas in writing or some other form of communication, and also the competencies that relate to the ethical dimension of literacy. We see now in this digital era, digital time now, we see that Indonesia still faces a very serious challenge of character. As we can see from the survey of Microsoft, Digital Civility Index in Indonesia is very, I can say, very, not to say bad, but very challenging to keep it in a very polite and very euphemistic statement. We suffer that our generation now, they are actually the native users of digital technology, but again, to be very fair, we can say that we have to deal with the problem of this Digital Civility Index. It is in this context that we can see teaching English again is not simply about teaching English proficiencies or competencies, but also teaching civility and character. We believe that within language, including English, there is element of culture and there is element of universal values and also noble virtue of human being. And in this context, when we develop deep learning, again, it is not only a shift or a new paradigm in our education, but it's actually part of our long-term direction to build national character and national civilization. Education is a process that involves the transformation of values, skills, and also values of noble norms that actually exist within all cultures in the world. Again, when we speak about language, culture, and civility, we see that the integration of these three important elements are actually very necessary and very meaningful, that we emphasize. Again, teaching English is not simply about building language competencies. And finally, of course, since we are not living in the digital age, sometimes people call this living in the AI age, artificial intelligence, we could also see the benefit of AI as a means to improve our teaching and learning, especially, of course, teaching and learning English. To some extent, this technology is very helpful, but on the other hand, it could also be harmful. Many aspects of teacher competencies might be replaced by this technology. For example, when we teach translation, this particular expertise might be or could be replaced by AI and ChatGPT. So for those who cannot understand English, you can have direct translation of my presentation into Bahasa Indonesia or other world languages. And AI can do that as much as they can. But sometimes AI would also find difficulties when I ask AI to translate and to give me a text in Japanese language for marriage speech. Ketika saya minta AI membuat pidato dalam bahasa Jawa, AI mengatakan, sorry, I cannot make that. This means that this technology is very helpful, but it cannot replace the position of teacher. It is actually underlined again the importance of teacher competencies and the importance of teaching English as part of building communication. Communication does not simply mean that people can communicate, use language, but communication means that students can express their ideas, can actually adapt and adopt positive cultures and part of the process that they learn the importance and the immersion of language and civilization. One day I watched a film in one of the aeroplane. I cannot name the aeroplane, but this film is actually Indonesian film, and it is translated into English with the subtitle in English. And I can see how technology sometimes very problematic and provide disinformation. In the film, there is a dialogue, angkat kaki dari sini. And the subtitle is, raise your foot from here. Itu sama dengan dulu pas lagi kursus bahasa Inggris, Pak Rektor masih pakai OHP itu Pak. Terlalu tinggi OHP-nya itu saya nggak nyampe. Teman saya juga dari ITS sudah nggak nyampe, terus dia bilang, sorry, not until. Sudah nggak nyampe. Maksudnya nggak nyampe itu jadi not until. Karena bahasa Inggrisnya rumit. Sorry is too high, itu kan agak susah ya. Nah, kalau kataku dia terjemahkan langsung dari bahasa Jawa ke bahasa Inggris, sorry nggak gitu, not until, nggak nyampe. Grammatically, this might be a mistake, and certainly clearly from the language point of view, it is a mistake. But from the communication of view, people can understand that. What I mean by this example is that we have the challenge that sometimes in the classroom, teaching English quite frequently be too grammatical. The emphasis on the formal use of English sometimes inhibit student curiosity and confidence to use the language. And sometimes it could become also the constraint that our language teaching in school mostly actually still very strongly dominated by structural English instead of communicative English. Therefore, the challenge is that how to make this language becoming interesting and challenging and allow students to use the language as much as they can without any kind of, let's say, hindrance from the possibility of making a wrong structure or maybe grammatical mistake. I mean, the challenge of teaching English in our school, especially nowadays time, need to be contextualized and need to be strengthened by the usage of technology. Therefore, in line with our policy, besides deep learning, we also has a policy in our national curriculum that one of the optional or maybe, let's say, we can say additional subject, although it is optional actually, is coding and artificial intelligence. It is important that we can integrate the teaching of English with this technology, and if we see from the survey of World Economic Forum, AI and coding, the two are most important skills that people, especially students, need to master it. Therefore, by integrating teaching of English with this technology, it is not only make the teaching of English becoming more and more joyful, but it's also more meaningful for the student. And as we can see that English, of course, it's not only become one of the very important prerequisites for academic achievement, but also very important competence that enable our students to access the world and to prepare themselves to be the global citizen and to develop what we call as global civilization. I think I have to stop here, Pak Dekan, and hopefully my very small contribution to this very big conference could enrich and could improve the quality of teaching and learning English in school and could make English become one of the most important language for the development of science, technology, engineering and math, and finally, of course, for the development of most civilized world, especially the civilization in this digital age. Thank you very much, and I have to stop here before you are getting tired with my presentation.
Thank you very much, Prof. Abdul Mukti, as our Minister of English Education, Primary and Secondary Education. Just give a round of applause for our president. Okay, dear participants, we have maybe one question for our Minister. Please. Oh, could be more than one. Yes, please. From this side, oh, yeah, it's okay. Yeah. After that, this. Yeah.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Senang sekali Bapak bisa bertemu dengan Pak Menteri langsung dan diberikan kesempatan untuk bertanya jawab. Pertanyaan saya adalah terkait dengan mata pelajaran bahasa Inggris yang akan diwajibkan di sekolah dasar tahun depan. Terkait dengan kebijakan ini, maka dibuka kegiatan atau program calon fasilitator untuk guru bahasa Inggris, khususnya SD, guru kelas yang akan mengajar bahasa Inggris. Kebetulan saya tertarik untuk mengikuti program tersebut sebagai fasilitator yang tahapannya sudah sampai pendaftaran, kemudian ujian English Proficiency, tapi sampai sekarang belum ada pengumuman lebih lanjut, Pak. Yang kami tanyakan adalah terkait dengan kebijakan guru kelas untuk mengajar bahasa Inggris. Karena menurut pengalaman saya sendiri, ketika guru-guru bahasa Inggris saja, terutama yang baru mengajar di SD, itu juga masih perlu banyak katakanlah misalnya pelatihan atau pengembangan diri. Sementara untuk pengajar bahasa Inggris, jika backgroundnya adalah bahasa Inggris, tantangannya adalah pada kurangnya pedagogical skill dan content knowledge, Bapak. Jadi mohon mungkin bagaimana gambarannya ke depannya agar untuk bahasa Inggris ini memang dikhususkan bagi guru dengan background bahasa Inggris. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much. Okay, sorry because we have a limited time. Only one question for our minister. Please, Pak.
Yeah, thank you. I think the second question could be answered by Ibu Nuno because it's might relate to the policy of teacher recruitment. But after my very brief answer to the question, of course, it is part of our commitment to improve the quality of teaching and learning English in schools, and commencing from next year, we will have training for English teachers. And training for English teachers could be prioritized for those who teach English, or if it's not related to the recruitment of the teachers, then maybe Bu Nunu can explain about the technicality of this, because Minister does not have any competence to deal with the recruitment of the teacher. Yang punya kompetensi ngangkat guru Bu Nunu, walaupun ngangkatnya menurut perintah menteri. But the point is that we see the reality that our English teacher competencies is still under competence, and it is the challenge that we need to improve the quality of our English teachers. English teachers might be consist of two. The first, those who are graduated from English department and they are recruited to become English teacher, or those who teach English, although he or she might not be graduated from English department, but he or she fulfill or meet the requirement to become English teachers. And our emphasis in this policy is that, again, how to make English becoming more interesting for our students, and how to make with the deep learning approach, that the teacher could implement this strategy to make the teaching of English becoming mindful, meaningful, and joyful. And in line with this, we concise or maybe limit the content of the language. Jadi materinya kita batasi, that enable teachers and students to interact more and actively use English, involving at least 3 basic English competencies, namely reading, writing, and speaking. So they can have confidence to use these 3 competencies in their daily activities, as well as enable them to have more interaction experience dealing with English references and English literatures. It is a part of our commitment to publish more books that motivate and also encourage students to explore more the experience of learning, not only from the classroom. This is actually our future direction in teaching and learning in general, including teaching and learning of English in our primary school, junior secondary, and senior secondary. And it is part of our policy as well. I need to add this, that commencing from this year, we will have test kemampuan akademik, just like national exam, that one of the subject is English. So English will become one of the national exam from grade 6 and then 9 and 12. And it is actually part of our policy, not only to improve the quality of English, but in general to improve the quality of our education. And finally, lobby Pak Moderator, Pak Dekan, for Bu Nunu to explain about the recruitment of the teacher and some of the cases that she experienced.
Baik, terima kasih Pak. Jawab pertanyaan Bu Guru tadi ya. Jadi kalau untuk kasih. Jadi tadi mau terkait dengan lini masa, memang ada perubahan lini masa untuk pelatihan bahasa Inggris, untuk guru bahasa Inggris guru kelas. Jadi seperti yang tadi disampaikan oleh Pak Menteri, memang di tahun 2027 itu ada wajib mata pelajaran bahasa Inggris di SD mulai kelas 3, sehingga diperlukan untuk peningkatan kompetensi atau penambahan kompetensi guru kelas agar dapat mengajar bahasa Inggris. Nah, pada awalnya memang tahun ini kita akan ada piloting dulu. Nah, karena kita perlu penyempurnaan modul, di mana di sini ada perubahan paradigma mengajar bahasa Inggris, tidak hanya memberikan bekal grammar, tata bahasa dan lain sebagainya, tapi seperti yang dijelaskan oleh Pak Menteri, mereka bisa mengajarkan anak untuk bisa berbicara bahasa Inggris. Maka kita melakukan penyempurnaan modul terlebih dahulu pada saat ini. Dan kami juga mengajak
TEFLIN dan semua pakar bahasa Inggris untuk membantu kami untuk menyempurnakan modulnya. Universitas Teknik juga terlibat dan beberapa yang hadir di sini juga terlibat dalam penyempurnaan modul. Setelah itu modul sudah sempurna dengan uji coba ya Prof ya, sudah dilakukan uji coba sehingga ini modul sudah siap. Saya baru mau laporan ke Pak Menteri ini hari Rabu besok ya, terkait dengan desain barangkali ada masukan dari Pak Menteri terkait dengan modul yang sudah disempurnakan oleh para pakar. Setelah itu baru tahun ini adalah penyiapan fasilitator. Memang untuk fasilitator nasional itu akan disiapkan tahun ini dan pelatihan terhadap 150.000 guru kelas itu baru kita akan lakukan di tahun 2026, sehingga harapannya di tahun 2027 ketika itu sudah wajib, guru kelas yang lain sudah siap untuk mengajar. Kita tahu bahwa untuk guru mata pelajaran sekolah SD masih sangat sedikit yang menyediakan guru mata pelajaran bahasa Inggris, sehingga di sini kami bekali terlebih dahulu kecakapan mengajar bahasa Inggris, pedagoginya. Dan untuk mengangkat guru itu sangat kecil kemungkinan untuk menyediakan satu sekolah dasar, satu guru kelas. Dengan jumlah SD 300.000 lebih, berarti kita harus mengangkat kurang lebih 250 ribuan atau 270.000 guru, dan itu sangat tidak mungkin. Sehingga pada masa antara ini kita siapkan. Jadi Ibu tunggu saja, nanti akan ada panggilan untuk pelatihan fasilitasnya. Terima kasih Pak.
Thank you very much, Pak Menteri. Thank you very much, Bu Nuno. Give a big round of applause again for you. Thank you very much for the central policy and direction of our language learning. I think that's all from me, and then give back to Master of Ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Abdul Mukti, for the inspiring keynote speech. Please kindly remain on stage for the token of appreciation.
As a token of our sincere appreciation, we would like to present a memento to our keynote speaker.
We respectfully invite Director of Universitas Brawijaya, Professor Widodo, to the stage to present the token of appreciation. Thank you, Professor Abdul Mukti and Professor Widodo. Please kindly return to your seat.
Before we proceed to the next agenda, we would like to invite Professor Abdul Mukti and Professor Widodo and all audiences to stand up for the photo session.
We will count down for the photo sessions in 3, 2, 1. Okay, another one. Okay, semangat, tangan mengepal with the hand. 3, 2, 1. Brawijaya pose. Alright. In 3, 2, 1. Thank you to all audiences. You may all back to your seat. Indonesia who have attended the 71st TEFLIN International Conference. To proceed to the plenary session, we would like to invite Professor Abdul Mukti and Professor Widodo to go to the VIP lounge, and for all the audiences to return to your seat.
as we proceed to the next agenda.
Kepada Bapak Ibu dimohon untuk kembali ke kursi karena sesaat lagi kita akan melanjutkan kegiatan plenary session.
Once again, for all audiences, please kindly return to your seat as we will proceed to the next agenda. Moving on to another awaited session of today's event, the plenary session.
We would like to invite the esteemed moderator, Dr. Muzaki Afifuddin, to the stage.
This plenary session will be led by the moderator.
Thank you very much. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, so good morning everybody, fellow researchers and also TEFLIN board, RP board and also other teachers. Yeah, welcome to this third session with me as moderator. My name is Muzaki Afifuddin. I'm an RT East Java coordinator. RT stands for Asosiasi Linguistik Terapan Indonesia, which is actually an affiliate to the ILA, which later on is going to be presented by Professor Kiria for the presentation. So I would like to invite Professor Kiria to the stage. Please give a warm welcome to Professor Kiria Finardi. Professor Rebecca Finardi is a prominent Brazilian academic specializing in applied linguistics and education with a strong focus on internationalization and higher education, language policies, multilingualism, and decolonial perspectives in education. So, her current position is a full professor or senior lecturer and researcher in the Department of Languages, Culture and Education, and graduate programs education and linguistics at Federal University of Espírito Santo, Vitória, Brazil. Her education, she holds PhD and MA in applied linguistics from the Federal University of Santa Catarina, as well as BA in law and a degree in English and language teaching. Her research areas are internationalization in higher education, language policies, multilingualism and decolonial perspectives, technology in education, and English language teacher education. So without further ado, let's welcome Professor Kiria Rebecca Finardi.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Oh yes, this one's right there. I am thrilled to be here with you today, very excited, and though a little bit tired and jet lagged because this is a long way from Brazil where I came, I am enlightened and very happy to be here, and especially to make this talk, to deliver this talk after Professor Abdul's introduction and session, where I learned about the plans for English language teaching in Indonesia, and where he mentioned the important role of English in the development of global citizenship and the development of Indonesia. And of course, we have to ask ourselves, since it is such an important skill for the future, what are the role of teachers in this? since, as he said, coding and English are going to be the two most important skills for the future. I imagine most of us, or some of us here, are language teachers, so we have perhaps the most important job at all. I usually say that we have the most important professions because we are the ones responsible for forming and teaching other professionals. As a language teacher, as an English language teacher educator, also a researcher of the role of English in the world, I can see that this is a very important mission, a very important task, and perhaps the key to making what Professor Abdul was mentioning today, making the language teaching, English language teaching, more mindful and joyful and maybe relevant for students is perhaps the personalizing and tailoring of this. And for this, I think AI, technology in general, and AI in particular has a very important mission, a very important role. And this is another reason why I am delighted to be here with you today to address or maybe reflect and maybe even provoke us to think about our role as teachers, researchers, speakers of other languages in the age of AI. And for that, I have to congratulate TEFLIN, ALTI, and other associations and organizations, especially TEFLIN and ALTI for organizing such a wonderful event and for making and selecting a topic that is so relevant, so contemporary. So congratulations to all of you. A pleasure to be here with you today. Because I was afraid of not being able to keep my time, and maybe because of the jet lag, I made some notes so that I can keep on track and finish in the right time, so I can come down and perhaps engage with a few questions and dialogues. I really would like this to be a dialogue with all of you here. So if you can bear with me, I'm going to read some notes in the beginning as I pass my slides. Can we go to the second slide, please? So as you can see from the title, sorry. So as you can see from the title of my presentation or provocation, the idea was to link with the topic, the very relevant topic, as I mentioned, of this conference, and reimagine what we do in classes and in English language teaching in general, to engage with the discussions, the very important discussions we are having and affording in this conference. And so as to introduce the context of why I selected this topic, I'm going to read notes on two different studies that I used to inform me to produce this talk today. The first one is about the use of ChatGPT, one of the most, let's say, known Gen AI tools we have nowadays, and later for the implications of this for the English language classroom. So as we said, the first one is this introduction of this study about ChatGPT. And as you know, a brand new study that I'm going to mention has dug into billions of interactions with AI, more specifically with ChatGPT. And what they found in this study that I'm going to refer to today about our relationship with AI is, well, not what most of us would expect. To understand the sheer scale of this thing, we have to take a look at the data from which this study drew on, mostly on the use of ChatGPT from 2023 onwards. We're talking about 700 million weekly active users in the world. And that's not just a popular app, as we can see by the use. It's a full-blown global phenomenon. It is without a doubt the fastest adoption of any technology in history. And just listen to this. Those 700 million people are sending over something between 2 and 12 billion messages every single day. That is an absolute fire hose of data showing us what people want and need on a scale that just hasn't been seen before. And which of course brings us to the question inside the crazy storm of activity. So what is everyone actually doing with AI? Okay, so before we dive into the study, before I refer to it, we have to talk about the hype, right? Because there's this really powerful story out there about what AI is for. A story that has been shaped by headlines and, let's be honest, our own assumptions of what AI can or is. So let's start right there, the assumptions. And the biggest assumption of all of them is that ChatGPT is, at its core, a tool for work. This is what most people think. We hear all the time about people using it to write code, and Professor Abdul mentioned this today, to draft business reports or to just supercharge their productivity. The main idea is that it's like a digital co-worker, right? But one that helps us get our jobs done faster. This is what most people think. But is this really the whole story? No, it's thank you. So that is the myth with ChatGPT. And with the next slide later on, you'll see some of this data. This is just an introductory to the study that I'm going to present. So AI is the ultimate digital sidekick at work. This is at least the myth, or what we thought. But when researchers actually started steering through billions of digital messages, the reality that popped out was, well, a lot different, and frankly, a lot more human than we expected. And here it is, the first huge surprise. The data showed that almost 3/4, or to be more specific, 73% of all the ChatGPT use is personal, not work-related. So it has little to do with the job and more to do with our personal interactions and relations and the way we express and use technology in our daily lives. And that trend is actually growing. So while we've all been obsessed over how AI is going to change our jobs, the data of this particular study shows that the real revolution is happening in our personal lives. And I wanted to bear this idea in mind because this is connected with the theme that I am presenting, so the human in the AI revolution. So the study breaks down the data and turns out into 3 big categories of use of ChatGPT. Number 1 is practice and guidance for real-world activities, things like tutoring, how to advise, brainstorming creativity, creative ideas. Then the second category would be writing and seeking information, but as we said, personal information, basically tied for in second place, the 2 categories. And this is the kind of activity we would do in the past with Google, but now we do it with AI, which is a little bit different. And so this is not just about telling AI, hey, do my work for me. What the data is showing is that the way we are using AI is a lot more collaborative. 2/3 of the time, people are bringing their own text to the AI to get it improved. So it's less about automation and much more about augmentation. It's like a creative partnership. And here's where the gap between the hype and the reality becomes a total chasm. Coding, that Professor Abdul just mentioned, the thing that everybody thought was the killer app for AI, it only accounts for 4% of all the messages. And the whole sci-fi idea of AI as a friend or a companion, well, that accounted for less than 2% of the data. So the data couldn't be clearer. We're not using AI to replace programmers or therapists. We're using it for much more everyday practical stuff. So now we know the what we are using AI for, but the who, that is also very surprising in terms of the study, the data for the study. The story that the user data tells us is one of incredible speed and just dramatic change. In the very beginning, 2023, when the study was carried out, the user base was, well, let's face it, overwhelmingly male. But in a ridiculous short amount of time, the gap didn't just shrink, it completely vanished. So by mid-2023, the gender split was based at a perfect parity. So now the number of women, men, the gender gap is at parity, the same. This just goes to show that this technology is breaking out of a typical tech bubble and going mainstream and at a record speed. And when we say mainstream, we mean global. The real engine of growth has totally shifted away from wealthy nations, global north, global south. Now it's growing fastest in low and middle income countries such as Brazil, for instance. And so this isn't just a toy for Silicon Valley anymore. It's becoming a utility for the entire world, regardless of age, gender, etc. And so who's driving this global growth? And here is the important message for all of us here. The next generation. It's pretty staggering. 46%. So almost half of all the users, adult users, come from people under the age of 26. Let's pause for a minute and let that number sink in. They aren't just using this technology, they're actively shaping what is going to happen with all of us in the future. So let's put all the pieces together. It's ChatGPT, it's used for more personal life than for work. It's used for practical, everyday advice and work also. It's been used by a young global audience in all parts of the planet. And all of these clues, they point to one single really powerful conclusion. We've been thinking about the entire purpose of AI, and maybe this is wrong. And this brings us to the absolute core idea of the study I'm mentioning, that researchers broke down into a single category, asking and doing things with AI. Are we using AI like a co-worker to do the task for us? Or are we using it more like a co-pilot to help us, or help us think? The answer to that question changes everything. And the data could not be more clear on this. Asking for advice and information is by far the dominant way we use it, or we have been using it at least. We're fundamentally using AI not as a thing that does tasks, but as a partner to help us think. And what's really interesting is that these conversations aren't just happening more often, they're also the fastest growing type of conversations in the world. And this is key. Users consistently rate these interactions as being higher quality. We actually found more value when we use AI to help us think, rather than just do something for us. And this all leads to what the studies concluded. Even when we are at work, the primary value of a tool like ChatGPT or another Gen AI comes from its ability to provide decision support, making us better by acting as a research assistant and a sounding board, especially in those complex knowledge-based jobs. So this leaves us with this fundamental shift in how we see things, because for years the story of AI has been about autopilot, about automation, about replacement, but the data tells us a totally different story. It's a story about a co-pilot, a tool for augmentation. And if AI's true power isn't to replace our thinking, but to enhance it, well, that changes everything, and it changes how we see these tools, and the role of teachers in using this. The second study that I'm going to mention, so as to contextualize my talk, and then I'll show you the rest of the slides, is about the use of AI now being more specific in the English classroom. And we know, I mean, all of us, teachers, students, and people in general, we have seen how it has become more and more used every day. But what does this actually look like in the real classrooms in the world? Today, in this event, in this Congress, we're going to pull back the curtain on a place you might not expect to see a full-blown revolution, the English classroom. And to see that this is just some minor upgrade, as I said, and as I mentioned from the previous study. It's basically tearing up the old playbook and writing a completely new one for how we learn and teach languages in general, and English in particular. Me, I as an activist and defender of multilingualism, we know that the role of English has a very important role in multilingualism as well. So if we do not address this role, perhaps we cannot motivate the learning of other languages too. So yes, storming is definitely the right word when we describe the use of AI in the English classroom. This isn't some far-off thing we need to worry about later. It's like a category 5 hurricane of technology that's already hitting classrooms hard, from Singapore all the way to San Francisco, to mention some of the abstracts and some of the studies that I saw in the presentations here in this event. And so the big question is, what is going to look like when the storm passes? Because let's be real, for every shiny new promise, there's always a potential cost. And so it's so easy to get caught up in the hype of artificial intelligence, but we've got to ask the tough questions too. And this is why I think events such as this and associations such as TEFLIN have such an important mission to ask the tough questions and to face the tough questions that we have to ask. Tough questions such as, what are we actually gaining with all these new tools? And maybe even more important, what are we at risk of losing? That's really at the heart of what we're going to try to unpack today and see how the human is going to interact and perhaps work with artificial intelligence. And so first, let's dive straight into the program of this conference. I'm going to show you some of the topics that I drew on from this conference to talk about. And we can see that technology is only part of the story. By looking at the topics described here, we can see that the other arguably more important half of this conversation is the role of humans in this and how humans are actually interacting with and using this. And this is where things get really fascinating. We're going to look at a study that did something incredible. And this study is also mentioned. I know the slides are not shown. I'm going to show you the slides later with this data. This is just a contextualization of the slides. Thank you for pointing that out. So the other question that I mentioned, the human question, this is where things get fascinating, as I mentioned. We're going to look at a study that measured human reaction to AI. It actually measured what our bodies are telling us and the question of how it actually feels when we work with AI. What is it like to brainstorm an essay, for example, for a teacher with a chat compared to a human teacher? What's the real, emotional or even physical experience of learning this way? So this study comes from Singapore and actually measured the physical reactions and emotions people had when interacting with a human teacher and with artificial intelligence. With a human teacher, what we saw and what data for the study shows is that there are more positive emotions and reactions for students. We're talking about students feeling more motivated, inspired, empowered. They even remembered specific advice a month later. Now, with the AI chat, the emotional gains were not as big or smaller than with the human, of course, as expected teacher. And honestly, the students barely remembered the interaction at all. So first thing is, when interacting with people, we remember. When interacting with the chat, AI, not so much. But, and this is the twist, there is an upside for that. AI offered the absence of social evaluation that AI offers actually can have a good side. And that turns out was a huge, unexpected plus for some students. And this quote just nails it. This is what the unexpected upside of AI. For some students, it was actually better to interact with AI. Why? Because they felt less judged. They could throw out any idea. They didn't have to worry about what they were saying or how they were saying. And this, they didn't have to worry about being right or wrong. And this was a lot alleviating for them, for these types of students. No judgment, no fear of looking silly. So what about the quality of the work? Of the students working with teachers, human teachers, and AI. Did it matter who they worked with? Yes. On average, the essays that students wrote with a human teacher and AI, they were about the same quality, similar actually. But when we look closer at the AI chatbot group, we see how spread out the results were. AI basically acted like an amplifier. So if you're already a strong student, it helped you do even better. If you were a student who's struggling or who has difficulty, without the human teacher to guide you, you actually ended up falling further behind. And all this leads to really important conclusion. This whole debate, it shouldn't be about humans versus AI. That's the wrong way to look at it. The real future is humans plus AI. So we have to understand how this plus AI is. And that's why conferences such as this are so important, to help us navigate these unnavigated waters. So it's basically about partnership. What the researchers are proposing is something they call a blended pedagogical model that combines the best of the two worlds. You get emotional intelligence and empathy from the human teacher with that feeling of safety and encouragement that only humans can give. But also you pair this with the AI, which acts as a tireless machine that can give cognitive provocation and uplifting. Basically, it can ask AI challenging questions over and over, pushing students beyond their border. And the goal isn't for AI to be a ghostwriter, but rather to be a provocateur, a partner for the students. So this is the catch and the motivation I had for presenting, and now I'm going to show you some of my slides. And for provoking you today with this talk. Why should we reimagine ELT now? You're going to see that all the images that I produced for this talk today were produced with the help of AI. You can see here some of the justifications for my theme today. And as I looked at the program, as I mentioned to you, I was very happy to see that this conference brings a lot of studies that actually inform us and help us navigate those uncharted waters, as I said. These are some of the examples. I'm not going to read through them. I'm just going to show you some of my slides. But all of these were extracted from the programs and the conferences and studies that you are presenting, that you are sharing with us. So I'm learning as much from you as you're maybe learning from me today, and I'm very happy to see that. In terms of speaking skills, for example, how people are using AI as a partner, facilitator, digital tools that are being used, such as Notebook LM and others, to tell stories, speaking assessment and the changes we have in speaking assessment, and other skills as well, reading, grammar, etc. We've just seen Professor Abdul mentioning how challenging it is to teach English, because when we go into classrooms, and I see the same reality in Brazil, most of the teaching is very structural, grammar-focused, form-focused, while we should be trying to make this more communicative, more relevant, more personal for our students. And AI, perhaps, is the game changer. Perhaps this is how and where AI can help us, teachers, change this. In a classroom with 30, 35, sometimes 40 different students with different personalities and different preferences, how can teachers make the same class plan? It's impossible. But perhaps with the support of AI, we can cater for this tailoring and personalization that Professor Abdul was mentioning earlier on today. Also, we can develop together digital practices that are necessary to amplify access to education and information, together with the development of language in general and English in particular. We can also, and AI can also stimulate and help translation and multilingualism. In the past, for example, as I mentioned to you, I am an activist and an enthusiast of multilingualism. I myself try to speak and learn 5 different languages, but of course this is, a drop in the ocean of the 7,000 languages out there in the world. And I always felt a little bit frustrated when I traveled to a country like Indonesia, so beautiful, with such a beautiful language, and I couldn't speak it. I felt so frustrated with this. And now, with the support of AI, of course, I may not be able to speak it, but I can communicate and relate to people in many other languages as well. So this, I think, is a powerful tool that we have to leverage in our classrooms and also in our multilingual practices. Of course, this does not come without their problems and challenges, such as the ethical issues involved in the use of AI, especially for writing and creating, not only writing, but creating materials, paintings, art. I saw in the beginning of the session today, when they were presenting the university here with the arts course, for example, what are the implications of artificial intelligence for translators, for artists, for people whose lives depend on their creativity? If now we start using, products 100% made by artificial intelligence. So these are important questions. I don't have all the answers, but these are important questions that all of us have to ask ourselves. Society has to ask itself, and we teachers have to ask as well. And what are the policies that we are going to put in place so as to make this happen? I was very happy to see some of the thoughts and some of the policies that are being implemented in Indonesia in that regard. And I think that this is something that we teachers will have to eventually engage with. In the past, usually teachers thought that our role was only to, worry about what happens in the classroom, but no. Now we know that we have to engage with, higher order policies that have to do with what is ethical or not ethical in the classrooms. Just to give you an idea, I've asked Notebook LM to look at the program for this conference and create a mind map with the topics that were addressed in this event. I know it's difficult to read from the back, but this is just to show you that AI can actually help us in many different ways. In summarizing, in making mind maps, in helping teachers, for example, tailor materials for specific types of students. And so this brings us, and now I'm about to conclude my talk so we can engage in the conversation as I mentioned to you. So AI, as we can see in the picture with the scales, it brings us a lot of opportunities, but of course a lot of risks as well. And we have to be very mindful of that. And in terms of how we measure and how we balance the human with the artificial intelligence, as I said in the introduction to this talk, I think that the key is brain first, AI later. So we have to work with AI, and I think we teachers do not have a choice anymore of whether we accept this or not, whether we want to do this or not, because our students are using it anyway. And I usually tell my students that although technology is not going to replace teachers, and AI is not going to replace teachers, I am sure that teachers who do not work with technology and who do not work with AI will be replaced by those who do. And so there's no way we can continue to evade this very important question. If we have to do it, then what is the correct way? What is the best way that we can do this? Having AI work as an augmenter rather than a replacement. So having us develop our skills rather than substitute important skills that we, teachers, are still responsible for making and for flourishing in the classroom. This brings us to the idea of this critical pedagogy that I mentioned, that in terms of the use of AI would be brain first, AI later, meaning that we teachers still have to develop these basic, in terms of languages, the basic repertoire, and in terms of other skills, the basic knowledge that students need before they can actually benefit from the use of AI. So as not to impair the development of these skills and of what we can do as a society. And this is one of the studies that I promised I was going to show you some data. This is one of the studies that was carried out at MIT in the US, and that shows that when we work with LLMs, the large language models, for example, and this is very important data, 47% of our brain activity is reduced when using AI. Let's think about that for a minute. What does that mean for our development, for humans in general? 83% of people using AI couldn't remember what their interactions and the contents that they used with AI writing. This is because of this phenomenon called cognitive offloading or cognitive debt. And the best results in the study were found when we use the pedagogy that I mentioned to you, so the brain first, AI later. If we introduce AI too early, without students have the basic repertoire or the basic skills, we may be preventing them from developing very essential skills they will need to use AI. And so this brings us to the implications for EOT. AI-generated writing can lack ownership and depth if it is done by the computer, by the AI as a ghostwriter, rather than as a co-pilot, for example, as I mentioned. Students should construct knowledge before using AI. And if students should construct the knowledge before using AI, we teachers are important here. We have to help them build this basic repertoire. And to promote the more critical use of tools, we have to preserve the deep learning. And the deep learning cannot be done without engaging in this process before. There's a proverb in English, we say no pain, no gain. So if we start to prevent the pain from the learning that we have to do, we may not be doing a lot of learning in the end. I'm very mindful of my time, so I'm very quickly going to mention to you the role of some international associations like TEFLIN and AUTI that are responsible for organizing this event. AILA is the International Organization of Applied Linguistics. It's actually a confederation made up of about 40 national affiliates in different countries and in all the continents. Brazil is one. And IALA, the Ibero-American Association of Applied Linguistics, of which I am part too, and the research networks promoted by IALA, are very concerned and taking it to the heart of their activities, research that language implications for language teachers, implications for language learning and teaching, and also the use of AI. Also, they have a very important concern in terms of social justice, in not only in applied linguistics, motivating the use of other languages. We know that the hegemony of English has implications for other languages, and we also know that the teaching of contents in other languages at a certain age might have implications for the development of those skills in young learners. So mindful of that, applied linguistics is concerned about how we can, as we said, have the best of the two worlds. So teach and learn English as a lingua franca, as access to information and education, but at the same time be very mindful of the implications of the hegemony of English, not only for those who do not master this language, but also for the production of knowledge in other countries, because of the invisibility of knowledge produced in other languages. So this is something that specifically my research has been, I've been carrying out research on this. And this is why we promote and propose inclusive and culturally rich EOT, one that uses plurilingual and translanguaging practices in the classroom. And we can do this with artificial intelligence, so not only English, but welcoming and nurturing other languages as well. Valuing students' linguistic and cultural repertoires, and open education with multilingual goals. And here's where AI can have it's a double sword, because while it strengthens the hegemony of English, it it can also afford the inclusion of many other practices, multilingual practices and languages as well. As a final thought, I would like to invite you to think about AI as this powerful ally, one that if critically used can help us shape a more human-centered world and education in general. And to say thank you to you, I leave you a QR code. This is a research that I've been carrying out, and I invite you to participate in this research, and I will gladly share results of this research with you about the implications of AI for different languages and for the knowledge produced in the global north and in the global south. In the first plenary we had this morning, we were talking about publications of chapters, publications of papers, and we know that it's not only the language that counts. Even if we, people from Indonesia, people from Brazil like myself, even if we publish papers in English, because we are not native speakers of English, or because the papers come from Indonesia or Brazil, chances are they're not going to be as easily accepted as papers from the global north, for example. And this has serious implications for knowledge production and knowledge circulation. So this research is looking at the implications of different languages for the knowledge production, but also of AI. Because in the past, perhaps, being a native speaker of English from a certain university could be a language divider in terms of having or not the paper accepted. But what happens now that we have AI to make the translation of papers into different languages, and what is going to happen with this knowledge circulation in the world? So if you want to answer this survey, it's a very short survey, it takes less than 10 minutes. Just scan the QR code, and I will be more than happy to share results of the study with you. And now to answer, if we have time, questions and comments from you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have to because the microphone is off. Okay, so do you have any questions? If you have any questions, you have 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's so many. Okay, good. I think I would like to have 4 questions straightforward. Only 4. Yeah. From the lady from the back first. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, you are. Yes. You may come forward.
I'll stand in the front here, so you can feel more comfortable to ask questions. And it's easier for me to hear, because here we cannot hear very well. Just a second.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. So it's really nice topic because actually I have conducted the same research too. So I'm going to present about this, the policy of using AI in language education. So, actually, I've been doing some research about the use of AI, and later on, I feel so concerned with my students when they use AI. So that's why now I come to this stage. So my question is that which one comes first? Digital literacy first or AI literacy first? Because here in Indonesia, actually, based on my observation,